What was that? That's scary. Welcome back, guys. My name is chriscameraguy. Today, we will be doing an in-depth breakdown on a man shrouded in darkness, a truly evil and perhaps detestable man. Some regard him as a clown of sorts. He's been known as a circus carnival performer, a painter, a musician, photographer, and lastly, a religious leader. Today, I'd like to expose the evil, degenerate story of a man named Anton Lavey. It was during the second half of the 20th century when an openly satanic movement arose and gained significant attention from mass media with the enigmatic sensationalist Anton Lavey. In this video, I examine the life of Anton and explore how he drew on philosophy and literature to create a religious movement that challenged Christian morality and systematic power. Lavey was born in Chicago on April 11, 1930, to Father Michael Joseph Lavey and Mother Gertrude Augusta Coltrane. They were a run-of-the-mill Christian middle-class American family that immigrated from the Ukraine. They moved to San Francisco while Anton was a teenager, and at the time, San Francisco was a booming metropolis. It would soon become the home of the counterculture movement from which Lavey's eccentric satanic sect would rise. From an early age, Lavey had an interest in the occult. It started at the tender age of 7 years old, where he began purchasing dream books, tarot cards, and attempting to summon spirits. Beside his infatuation with the occult, he also displayed a skilled propensity for music, and his parents supported him in developing his gift. Lavey eventually took an interest in the organ, which he used to acquire employment throughout his young life. Lavey dropped out of high school at 16 years old, and he joined a circus. There he played the organ, and eventually became a lion handler and trainer. Around this time, his distaste for Christianity and any religious organization began to manifest within young Lavey. He didn't like the fact that most religious individuals did not fully devote themselves to their godly beliefs and instead live lives of hypocrisy. He became so prolific at playing the organ that he eventually was given access to join the Union as an official musician. He purported that his playing tamed lions and other felines. In 1948, Anton was living in Los Angeles and claimed to have had a romantic affair with the young Marilyn Monroe before she was famous. He accounts that the two met while she was working at a burlesque bar that still stands today here in Los Angeles called The Mayan. He frequented the establishment often and claims that when he met Monroe, the two hit it off and were making out in her car in no time. The relationship was short-lived, and Lavey would move back to San Francisco in 1951 and go on to marry a 15-year-old girl named Carol Lansing. He and Lansing had a child together in 1952, and it's kind of weird, a child having a child. Lavey at this time was 20 years old. I personally couldn't imagine dating a 15-year-old girl in my 20s. It is absolutely unbelievable. During that time, Lavey claims to have been a forensic photographer and psychic researcher in San Francisco's police department. It was in the early 1960s that Anton Lavey became a local celebrity. He used to take his pet leopard for walks down the street and would be seen driving his personal vehicle, a coroner's van, all around town. He was similar to Aleister Crowley in the sense that they both had a very charismatic personality, but Lavey was arguably more successful in establishing a following. Lavey managed to accumulate social connections and important friendships within the community. He skillfully navigated counterculturism and became the face to a major faction of the movement. followers began to flock to Lavey, and in 1966, he believed that he had enough resources to start a new religion. He purchased a piece of property in San Francisco, painted the building black, and officially founded the Church of Satan on April 30th, 1966. From the very beginning, the Church of Satan garnered enormous media attention. Lavey had by this time began to master his public presence and use those techniques to create religious scandal, and not only in San Francisco, but eventually worldwide. He shaved his head and proclaimed his title as High Priest of the new satanic religion. And just a side note here, the reason he shaved his head is allegedly in the tradition of ancient executioners. He invited journalists to attend satanic rituals. There were nude women serving on altars, pentagrams on the walls, and various other aspects of a black mass. However, the ceremonies did not incorporate all the repugnant elements that some would later attribute to them. There are 4 notable events that launched Lavey into national stardom. The first was on February 1st, 1967, when he officiated his first wedding by performing satanic rite rituals for journalist John Raymond and socialite Judith Case. The second event that led Lavey to stardom was performed in the same year, the unholy baptism of his daughter Xena. He dedicated her to Satan and the left-hand path, which garnered worldwide publicity. The third event cementing the Church of Satan into prominence was when a man named Edward D. Olson, a 26-year-old Navy officer, was killed in a traffic accident. After this Navy officer passed away, it was noted by his surviving wife that Edward Olson requested that High Priest Anton Lavey perform a satanic funeral ceremony after his passing. And that's exactly what Anton Lavey did. Imagine this: there was military personnel that attended this funeral, equipped with American flags, wearing their service uniforms, and a slew of news media documenting the event, and of course, Anton Lavey performing his ritual at this funeral. After this, the US military recognized the Church of Satan as an official religion and included it in the Military Church Chaplain's Handbook. Throughout Lavey's history, he acquired the membership of many well-known celebrities, such as Sammy Davis Jr., Merlin Manson, Jane Mansfield, Liberace, wrestler Balls Mahoney, Glenn Danzig, Matt Skiba of Alkaline Trio, and Blink-182, just to name a few. But there are many more celebrity members that keep their membership very quiet. Lavey began a new calendar, making year 1 the same year his church was founded, which he referred to as the Year of Satan. In addition to shaving his head, Lavey wore horns on his head to resemble the devil, and in front of cameras he frequently assumed an enigmatic gaze. Sometimes he even walked around with a leashed lion, and he adopted the title of the Black Pope. Oh my god, Anton! The media ate his performance up, and many spectators were curious or amused by the new religious movement. In fact, the Church of Satan was thriving, largely based on public perception. Its members' actual beliefs were less important than the stigma that developed from Lavey's visual performance. The jarring rituals, unique fashion, and the countercultural environment that gave stage to Lavey's new identity were integral to its growing success. Television programs regularly dedicated airtime to the Black Pope, and famous film director Roman Polanski even piggybacked on the attention the Church of Satan was receiving to promote the film Rosemary's Baby. And if you haven't seen it, the cult film is about a woman who gives birth to a child fathered by Satan himself. In fact, Lavey was a technical advisor to the movie and played the role of the devil in one of the film's most memorable scenes. Interestingly enough, Anton was not included in the credits. And here's a very peculiar side story that I might do a deep dive on in a future video. Susan Atkins, famed Manson family member and convicted murderer, was a member of the Church of Satan. She was known to perform aside Lavey in his Topless Witches review as a vampire. But that's not all. Atkins had been casted previously by Roman Polanski in a film called Dance of the Vampires, which starred Sharon Tate, whom she would go on to brutally murder years later. That was not the only thread that connected the Manson murders. Tate's lover, a well-known celebrity barber and drug pusher, Jay Sebring, who was murdered alongside Sharon Tate, was also known to be a member of the Satanic Church. So as far as we know, there were at least 3 people involved in the Manson family murders that we connected to both Polanski and Lavey. Coincidence? I think not, my friends. It leaves me wondering, were the people, including the baby inside of Sharon Tate's body, a sacrifice to the devil himself? And doesn't it seem a little fishy that Roman Polanski just so happened to be out of town while the murders occurred? Like I said, Roman Polanski is on my list, so you can all be expecting to hear more about this creep in the near future. But for now, let's get back to the story. Another really eerie story was of Jayne Mansfield. She was an American actress, singer, nightclub entertainer, and Playboy playmate. She was also a devout follower of Anton Lavey and the Church of Satan. Lavey had a propensity for blonde bombshells. It is rumored that Mansfield and Lavey were having a sexual affair. At the time, she was also dating her attorney named Sam Brody, and it was reported that Brody was physically and emotionally abusive towards Jayne. She couldn't see any way out. Brody had complete control over Jayne's money, and she was on the verge of losing her kids. She was desperate to get out of the situation, so in privacy, she took counsel with Lavey and pleaded with him to cast a spell to kill her boyfriend Brody. Anton agreed and began a dark satanic ritual, casting an evil spell of misfortune and death towards Sam Brody. He warned Mansfield to stay away from Brody because bad things were going to start happening to him. And within a couple of weeks after the curse had been placed, Brody crashed 2 different vehicles around Hollywood. And on one of the occasions, he broke his ribs, and on another, he broke a leg. It was truly very, very bizarre. Even though Lavey had warned Jayne Mansfield that she needed to stay away from their target, Jayne didn't heed warning. While in New Orleans one night after finishing a live cabaret performance, Brody, along with her 2 children, picked her up to drive her back to the hotel. However, they would not end up making it. Apparently, a truck in front of them began spraying insecticide. The fog and mist created by this truck made it increasingly difficult to see what was in front of them, leading them to crash into the commercial vehicle, instantly decapitating Mansfield and killing Sam Brody. Thankfully, the children made it out alive, completely unscathed. Is this another coincidence, or did Lavey's spell actually work? Anyway, moving on, Lavey also drew on the broader occult and incorporated symbols frequently associated with satanic groups, such as the pentagram. The 5-pointed star has also been used by many other traditions. Even early Christians adopted the pentagram for a time. While the traditional pentagram has 1 up-facing and 2 down-facing spikes, Lavey revised the symbol for his church. He was aware that during early colonial witch hunts, witches were often thought of parodying Christian rituals and symbols. Following that tradition, Lavey inverted the pentagram. Lavey also appropriated the image of Baphomet. Some believe the name Baphomet may have actually been a corruption of Mahomet, reflecting the medieval fear of Christians that a time would come when they would have to renounce their faith and convert to Islam. Lavey also adopted the inverted cross. While it is often interpreted as a satanic symbol, the inverted cross was initially associated with Peter, Jesus' disciple, who asked to be crucified upside down because he did not consider himself worthy of dying in the same manner as Christ. However, Lavey drew on the vernacular relationship between the symbol and anti-Christian sentiment. It is also notable enough to mention that Lavey, just like Adolf Hitler, took symbols that originally had differing meanings. Baphomet, for example, wasn't created to be a satanic symbol, but Lavey took it for his own and corrupted the image. And just a side note here, this is very similar to Hitler's use of the swastika. In the ancient Indian language of Sanskrit, swastika means well-being. The symbol has been used by Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains for millennia. It is commonly assumed to be an Indian sign. Early Western travelers to Asia were inspired by its positive and ancient associations and started using it back home. By the beginning of the 20th century, there was a huge fad for the swastika as a benign good luck symbol. And of course, until the 1930s, when Hitler changed the meaning of the swastika as we know it. Okay, back to Anton. Lavey's Bible often appears to mock Christian scripture. For example, instead of blessing the poor Lavey's Bible often appears to mock Christian scripture. For example, instead of blessing the poor and the weak, as found in the Gospel of Matthew, he writes, "Blessed are the strong, for they shall possess the earth. Cursed are the weak, for they shall inherit the yoke. Blessed are the iron-handed, for the unfit shall flee from them. Cursed are the poor in spirit, for they shall be spat upon." Lavey claimed to be an atheist who did not believe in Satan as an actual deity, but more as a representation of an idea and philosophy for individualism and rebellion. One thing is for sure, his movement was an attempt to attack and disassemble the moral fortitude of the Christian church. In the later years of Lavey's life, especially after the Manson murders, he became more of a recluse, and it said that he chose to step away from the limelight and focus more on recording albums and spending time with his family. Anton Lavey had a long and colorful life full of deceit, mystery, and overindulgence. He died on October 29, 1997, of pulmonary edema. The famous Satanist Anton Lavey's last deathbed words were, and I quote, oh my, what have I done? There's something very wrong," end quote. While the value of Lavey's teachings are debatable, in examining his life and writings, we can see how the power of his charisma and how his use, or some may say misuse, of philosophy and literature opened the door to a new and widely spread religious movement that challenged Christian ideologies and systematic power. Here are some final thoughts. There will always be new characters arising, promising you a better tomorrow and a life of pleasure, or sometimes even righteousness. Regardless of the message, please be wary, discerning, and careful who you decide to associate with. Thanks for watching. Truly means the world to me that you decided to spend this time with me. I truly, very much appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Have a safe and prosperous day, and make good choices.